you look on the right hand side of your screen, you have the chat box, and just next to the chat tab, there is the Q&A tab. So you can go to the Q&A tab and keep popping your questions in there, and we will take your questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you. So with this, I shall begin. So I'll just begin with, giving you the scope of the webinar so that you know what I'll be covering. Of course, which are the careers beyond lab and classroom, which is the actual topic of the webinar. What do these careers actually entail? What do they involve? What is the job profile, etc. Practical tips on preparing for science careers beyond the lab and the classroom, and the blueprint for the effective launch of a career in science which is beyond lab and classroom. So this is essentially the scope that we are going to be looking at. And let me just introduce myself. So I am Dr. Piyali Ghanekar, founder of the Cell Savvy Group. At Cell Savvy, we are on a mission to build a community that believes in relatable science and in the power of communicating science effectively to the society. My specialty is the immunopathology of human viral diseases. I have been in the field for almost a decade now and have worked with several human viruses and molecular biology techniques. I am trained in biorisk management and laboratory biosafety practices. I have published research studies and have been an editor for over 70 scientific papers. Presently, I work as a scientific consultant, writer, editor for global clients. I write and edit scientific medical books, blog posts, and help my clients create presentations and scripts for conferences, seminars, workshops, podcasts, video channels, and so on. Okay. I'm sorry, Shweta, you're unable to hear. Is that a problem with everyone? Okay, Shweta, could I please request you to log out maybe and log in back? Okay, so let me continue. So I write and edit scientific and medical books, blog posts. I help my clients create presentations and scripts for various conferences, seminars, workshops, and so on. I've also conducted around 20 training and mentoring programs for graduate and postgraduate students, medical and research professionals in immunology, virology, biotechnology, and molecular biology. I am very passionate about infectious diseases and the human immune system. I love being stuck in the loop of the, read, write, communicate. I love being stuck in this loop. And when I say stuck in this loop, it honestly gives me a lot of energy to keep doing this. This is what drives me. But this loop did not work so smoothly during the time that I was working in the lab. Let me explain what happened. So I had always aspired to work in the lab, work with viruses, do a PhD, and no tragedy there. I was fortunate to have it all. I was super stoked to get into a PhD program of my choice, have an amazing guide, and I found myself surrounded by brilliant yet super cool mentors and colleagues who are very good friends today. But yet I was troubled. Why? Because my loop wasn't working. I read, I worked, I wrote, but when I came back home from the lab, I couldn't communicate what I was doing to my friends and family. Because whenever I started to talk excitedly about my work, this is what happened. Just give me a second. So this is what happened. And how did I know that, this is what they heard when I was saying? Because you don't need words, right? They were very sweet with me. They tried to listen. They really tried to understand what I was saying. But this is all I saw on their faces. Did I really need words to tell me that they were not getting anything of what I was saying? And this was a very, very big bummer for me. It was very difficult for me because, like I said, that loop used to drive me. So I was finding something very, very amiss. And besides this incomplete loop, this started affecting my personal life. So now what started happening was my mother couldn't wrap her head around why cell cultures and mice were dictating my my work schedule, and why I needed to work on odd on weekends and run at every odd hour to save my cell cultures or my mice and so on. And all this was happening because I couldn't explain what I was doing to her in a language that she understood. She saw this as an encroachment of the mother daughter time. So something needed to be done, and it needed to be done soon. So that was my introduction to the world full of endless possibilities, the world of science communication. And these endless possibilities are the focus of today's webinar. So I shall just begin because we have a very, very diverse audience today. So I'm going to begin by talking about relevance to the audience. So if you find scientific discoveries or inventions intriguing, if you enjoy reading about new advances in science and talking about them, but don't see yourself working in a lab or a classroom, you want to understand the latest developments in science and technology, but feel bored or intimidated by the heavy technical jargon that is involved. You're a researcher that wishes to be able to communicate their work to their friends and family without boring them. If you're a scientist who aspires to see work create an impact on the society beyond the scientific community, or if you're a scientist who wants to see a wider dissemination of their work within the scientific community also, which would mean higher citation indices, if you nodded yes to any of these, then this webinar is for you. And please bear in mind that a science background is not a mandate. Your present profession or educational background is not a hindrance. There is something for everyone in this field of science communication. So here is a list of all the alternative career options in science. So this list, is a very comprehensive list, but it is by no means exhaustive. Like I said, possibilities are endless. I'm just scratching the surface here. So I will cover each one of them in details one by one. So I will begin with the category of science of communication and outreach. Now, communication and outreach is an umbrella category with varied opportunities. So, you can work as a science writer, a science journalist, museum education officer, event manager, public relations officer. All of these come under this umbrella. As a science writer or a journalist, you would essentially be relaying science news to the general public through media outlets and publications. As a museum education officer, you will work in museums and science centers and explain scientific concepts to visitors. As an event manager, you would be organizing science related information events or festivals for businesses, students, and for the general public. And as a public relations officer, you would be establishing connections between organizations, customers, or governments. Now, what would your job profile entail? So, it would obviously be communicating scientific knowledge and information with a lay audience. You would be promoting science related subjects and activities to visiting schools and university level students, even. You would be explaining, presenting the information in an easy to understand format, and at times you would even be presenting scientific findings to government officials. Graduates and postgraduates in all fields can explore these options. A passion for reading and writing, an eye for detail, and strong language skills would definitely give you an edge in this field. So, like I said, it's not a mandate to have a science degree. Then we move on to the next one, which is publishing, quite related to the field of communication and outreach, and yet very different. Jobs in this field are incredibly competitive. A love for books, passion for reading, writing is kind of like an unsaid requirement in this field. Science publishing, both online and in print. Okay, sorry. Uh, Okay, we have some participants who are unable to connect. Okay, we'll just look into that. Yeah, so continuing. So, science publishing, both on and in print, tends to focus on the production of books, journals, textbooks, revision guides. So, jobs can be found in production, proofreading, editorial, designing, illustrations, and so on. Some employers would, may even employ undergraduates, but uh, because it is such a competitive field, a postgraduate degree will hold you in good stead. So that, okay, now what will actually help you take uh, a good job, take up a good job in the publishing industry would be writing, beginning very early, I would say. So, like, for example, if you're in the university, if you're doing your master's or something, you can probably, start writing for your university newspapers, attend your, make science clubs, or if there's one existing one, join it. You can start your own science blog, you can create your own newsletter. All this kind of helps you build your portfolio. I will be covering that more in detail at the end. And scientific publishers look out for demonstrable experience. So if you're able to show it to them that, look, this is what my writing looks like, it will obviously give you an edge. So, and it also shows a degree of commitment to the industry. Okay, Milind, could you please try, re-logging in? Okay. Okay. Everybody else is able to hear me? Am I audible to everyone else? Okay. 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 Thank you, Milind. Thank you. Okay, great. So, yeah, okay, I'll just move on. Now, to land a publishing job, you will need to be confident. You will need to be qualified. You will need to be ambitious. You will have to have a passion for reading books as well as knowledge for industry, and be updated with the industry trends and know your target audience. Now, as you see, I am putting down all these points, but none of them am I emphasizing on the field of your degree, because that is the beauty of science communication. That's what I'm trying to put across over here, that just because the word science is there, you don't have to be a scientist, a researcher, have a big degree. It is just about how you showcase yourself in the industry and about creating license and networks. So, last but not the least, the competition of jobs is very, very fierce. There is no denying that. So it is important to keep an open mind. Do not discount opportunities. For example, if your end goal is to work in editorial, and if you get an admin or a marketing job in that company, please go ahead and take it, because you never know where that job will lead you. And it is also possible that an internal vacancy may open up, which will ultimately take you to where you want to be. Okay. So that, and then another very interesting field that I would like to discuss here is consultancy. Now, yeah, that is kind of what I do, but I found my niche here, and it's an amazing, place for exposure. You get global exposure. You're talking to global clients. So, what is it that we do basically? So, it is a management consultation that you will be getting into, and it is an attractive option for researchers who are looking for a career outside the lab, or even non-researchers. It will give you a chance to apply your analytical skills. If you feel that you're good at analyzing, understanding something and applying it, then this could be a really, really good place for you to troubleshoot your client problems. So your analytical skills will be used to troubleshoot your client problems, and clients are consulting you exactly for that reason. So it could be improving the efficiency of manufacturing processes for industries, and so many other things that your client may consult you for. And this is open to all graduates. However, having said that, a degree in business, economics, engineering, or science would be useful, because you just know the nuances of the field and it becomes a little easier. That's it. But you can find work with these consultancy firms, or you can be your own boss. Okay, and you can become a freelance scientific consultant. Now, moving on to the next one, which is a little similar, or rather an offshoot of consulting, I would say. is recruitment. So you can be a recruitment consultant. So what you exactly do over here is you match your candidate's skills to the right scientific role that they will fit for. So you are essentially consulting with them, you are advising them on the right path to go on. You could also consider working as an higher education careers advisor. Now here it is not strictly a recruitment role, but you will be directing students towards their suitable career, and therefore you will be influencing their recruitment indirectly. Okay, so with this, like we sort of finished this one entire umbrella. Now moving on to the more admin sort of jobs. So here I'm talking about research funding and administration. So if you like to keep up to date with the latest scientific developments but prefer the office to the lab, yeah, Akshay, sure, I'll just note down the question and I'll take it at the end. Okay, thank you. So yeah, so you would like to keep up to date and with the latest scientific developments, but prefer the office to the lab. Working in science funding and administration could really resonate with you. You will work with research councils and major funding bodies, and what you will be doing is using your scientific knowledge to support others' research. And your profile will include administering grant applications and advising applicants. A postgraduate degree in either business management, public administration, or science would be beneficial and is even preferred in this field. Okay, so that's about this, and then we move on to the people loving law. Okay, anybody in the audience who likes this is going to love these professions which are coming up, and they are one of the most highly paid professions, let me tell you that. So intellectual property and patent law. Now if you're interested in law, you may want to think of a career as a patent attorney, as a patent examiner, as a solicitor, or as a trademark attorney. Now I'll just explain briefly what these people do. So as a patent attorney, you would assess whether inventions are new and innovative and whether they are eligible to be patented. Patent examiners would use their technical and legal skills to assess the applications for these patents. A solicitor would correlate science with environmental law and intellectual property and would liaise with clients. You will need a degree in science, engineering, mathematics, technical, law, or a computer based science. So either of these is fine. Patent attorney and examiner roles are particularly suited for those with a science degree, since they help. The only reason is because it just smoothens the process of conversation and communication with scientists and researchers, but that is not a hindrance at all. It's just that you will have to work a little more if you're not in science to be able to communicate with them, to make the scientists feel that you can understand what they are saying. So that's it. So a little bit of effort on your end, but without a science degree also it works. And another field over here in law itself is science policy. Now this is very, very important. Jobs in science policy require you to draw on your scientific knowledge and understanding and inform and assist policy formulation, basically. So policy workers are employed in a variety of settings. It could be public, it could be private, voluntary sectors. So you could have your charities, NGOs, government departments, non-governmental organizations, public sector organizations such as DST, POST, scientific professional bodies. You could have trade associations. The work involves identifying and analyzing policy issues, collecting information on scientific issues, drafting reports, and writing briefing papers. Now, policy officers use their findings from the research that they have done and analysis to advise governments, think tanks, and businesses about the best practices. Vacancies are hard to come by in this because it is a very, very niche sort of a area that we are talking about, and almost all policy officers have very, very high postgraduate degrees in subjects such as politics, policy studies, public administration, and social policy, economics, anthropology, philosophy, psychology, sociology. So a wide variety of subjects. but definitely a postgraduate degree. Okay, and now I'm going to come to something very interesting, that is lobbying. Now, for those who have heard of this, may frown upon it. It is a frowned upon profession for certain reasons, but here I want you to understand what it really means in the world of science and how important it is, because then that can change your perception about this. Lobbying in science entails bringing issues that warrant government action to the attention of the policymakers, because these are the decision makers, right? So the government funding and regulations have a significant effect on education, on research funding, on healthcare policies, and lobbying will allow academicians and researchers to engage with policymakers and have an open dialogue. A lobbyist may represent a variety of entities. They can be individual, company, foundations, charities, local governments. Lobbying entails basically communicating with the government representatives, officials, legislatures on behalf of your clients and causes. Indirect root grassroots efforts could be through sending emails or making phone calls, wide and local research to understand the public opinion and relay that information to the employers, creating publicity materials such as press releases, advertisement brochures, tracking legislative bills and agendas to establish and advance goals. The art of persuasion is central to lobbying. Let me tell you that. If you are not an outgoing person and if you do not have the art of persuasion, lobbying is definitely not for you. Additionally, lobbyists must be well informed, self confident, good at networking and creating license. They must be able to figure out how to sway politicians, and that's not easy, to vote on legislation in a way that favors the interests that they represent. This means tailoring appeals to specific individuals or even to groups of individuals or organizations. And in terms of the educational background, a graduate or a postgraduate degree in political science, journalism, law, communications, public relations, or economics is required. Lobbying as a profession requires registration. So, if you want to be a lobbyist, you will have to get registered with the state, central, or federal governments. So, that is about lobbying. This is a very, very not so well known profession, I would say, and definitely not spoken about enough. Okay, so we finished with the law category. Now coming to manufacturing and production. Again, when a person gets into manufacturing and production, when a science student gets into manufacturing and production, most of the times, if it's not in the R&D department, people think, oh, field change kar liya. But you did not really change the field. That's not what happened. So let's see how science communication becomes a part of this whole thing. So in this sector, you could work as a health and safety inspector, you could be a product or process development scientist, you could be a quality manager, or you could be a nuclear engineer. Now, each of these roles I'll just explain briefly. So, the work of a health and safety inspector obviously involves protecting people by making sure that risks in the health in the workplace are kept under control. A product and process development scientist would essentially understand and control the processes used to make the final product. So you will be working across the manufacturing industry on a range of products such as foods, medicines, cosmetics, paints, and so on. As a quality manager, you'll be ensuring that the product or service an organization provides is fit for the purpose and is consistent with the internal and the external requirements. And as a nuclear engineer, now this is fancy. So you will be designing, building, running, or even decommissioning nuclear power stations. You will work in multidisciplinary teams to come up with technical solutions. So in this particular field, as a nuclear engineer, you might require chemistry and physics qualifications, and they will be particularly useful in this. Okay, So now moving on to another aspect of this very field, which is technical sales. Now, technical sales representatives work for pharmaceutical companies and they sell prescription drugs, medical equipment, laboratory apparatus, research equipment, and consumables to healthcare professionals and to researchers. Now, this career is open to all graduates, but a degree in life science, medicine, or pharmacy may be particularly useful because it makes it easier to converse with the the clinicians and the researchers that you're interacting with. But even without a background in the sciences, good communication skills could make this process very, very smooth. Okay, and we are on to the last of the careers that I wanted to discuss, which is data science and analysis. Now, this is really, really blowing up today. We are seeing n number of certification courses, and they are definitely the types that burn a hole in your pocket. So let me just explain what this is all about. So a data analyst, first I'll just explain the difference between a data scientist and a data analyst. So as a data analyst, you'll be making sense out of existing data, but a data scientist is the one who will be working on new ways to capture and analyze data, which is then used by the analyst, right? So if you love your numbers, if you love statistics, you love computer programming, this path is definitely a very, very good fit for you. You may work in many industries, including business, finance, criminal justice, science, medicine, government, because data is everywhere, right? So everybody needs a data scientist, a data analyst to take care of that data. Now, analysts could also be collecting data themselves, and they would conduct surveys, track visitor characteristics on, say, a company website, or buying data sets from data collection specialists. Now, this raw data will definitely include a lot of duplicates, errors, there'll be outliers. So cleaning the data would be essential because that would maintain the quality of the data in a spreadsheet, and also using a programming language so that the interpretations will not be wrong or will not be skewed. So modeling the data would be the next step, which would entail creating and designing the structures of a database. You might even choose what types of data to store and collect, establish how data categories are related to each other, and work through how the data actually appears. Now, interpreting data will involve finding patterns or trends in data that will help you answer the question at hand. Also, communicating the results obviously is the key part of your job as a data analyst, a data scientist. You would be doing this by putting together visualizations like charts and graphs, writing reports, presenting information, and all of this. So this is what the job entails. It is pretty intense but very rewarding for those who love it. So now talking about the graduates. Okay, so I mean, just coming to the educational background that's required. So the graduates in science, statistics, mathematics, computer science can all pursue this career path. Okay, good critical thinking skills and love for working with numbers, which is what I mentioned earlier, to solve these complex problems would make this profession a very, very good fit for you. Now, coming to the professional certification programs that I spoke about earlier, there are a lot of them available. We'll even be listing a few out for you in our list of resources, which we'll be sending across to you later. But for the development of these basic skills like your SQL or statistics, they can give you an edge in the field. I'm not saying they will not, but they are definitely not mandatory. In fact, what I would suggest probably is that you should look at the job that you're applying for. See if the job actually has that as an eligibility criteria or is asking for such a certification, because you're going to be putting in a lot of money in that, and certification organizations are going to lead you to believe that you require it for the job because that is their business, right? So most of the times what happens is, if you take up a job and the employer feels the need for you to do that particular course or have that particular certificate, they will send you for that course. So what happens is they end up paying for the course and paying you while you are learning, right? So basically what I'm just trying to say is that get into the professional world, because the only way into the into this world of professions and careers is actually pursuing one. So start working instead of collecting these degrees and certificates, and do not underestimate the importance of learning new skills constantly. Okay, that cannot be underestimated by any means. Okay, now I'm going to come to the blueprint. Just one second. Yeah. So the blueprint that works. So now this sounds very exciting. Oh wow, we are getting a blueprint, and it is like we're going to put that, we're going to apply that, and that'll work. There is no secret formula here. See, the best way to make a career in any profession is by doing three things. You gain relevant work experience, you build your portfolio, and you build your industrial contacts. That's how do it. And these industrial contacts obviously have to be relevant industrial contacts. So how do you do that? There are definitely, some guidelines to do it. So that's why we call it the blueprint, and it always works. So for building your portfolio, you write for university publications, or there are numerous online open platforms. Again, I'll be listing a few of them in the resources in the e-handout that we will be sending out to you. So that will be available to you to look at. But off the top of my head, I can think of, Our Voice, which is Researcher Voice. Then you have Collabtree. These places, they allow you to write for them. So that gives you an opportunity to feature your writing. You can start your own blog or your own newsletter. Now, why am I emphasizing on writing? Is because this is something that you can demonstrate. Yes, the blueprint is specific to the science communication field, Arsh, definitely. But you know, when, like I said, science communication had all of these careers and more. So for all of them, you can go for these things. Create work samples pertaining to your area of interest. Now when I say that, like for example, you want to be a data scientist. Now obviously then writing a blog, yes, of course, because it will tell your employer that you understand about data scientists. It will, you know yeah, Meghna, don't worry, I will be sending across this entire list that I've compiled, of all these resources, so you will get it together. The other one that I mentioned actually is Our Voice, Researcher Voice. So yeah, okay. So anyway, so I was saying, for data, if you want to be in data science, so you write your blog. Yes, it also shows the employer that you're committed to the industry, you've done your research about the industry and all that. But what would be better is if you could create if you could show some samples of how you interpret data. Okay, so like some simple samples of how you do it and all of that, if you could show that. So that's why I have written that it should be pertaining to your area of interest. Join university science clubs, organize science events, because if you remember, in communication and outreach, we spoke about being event managers, right? So when you organize college fests, science festivals I'm talking about, then that also adds to your resume, that adds to your profile. Okay, volunteer at science museums, science centers during your vacations, during your holidays, you're taking a break, or whatever, just volunteer. You can apply for these online or on-site internships. Now this online internships, the concept is great. I will send, you will have a list of places which offer these online internships in the e-handout. And please try and contact them and see if you can get through, because this is lovely, because you can actually be at the comfort of your home and yet do an internship. Yeah, most of the times these internships may not be paid, the online ones, but again, you are not incurring any expenses. You're not there's no lodging expense, no fooding expense, no transportation. So you can think about it. That's what I'm saying. So also, enter these writing competitions. Again, I'll be putting together some websites which do this, so write for them. Invest in upskilling constantly. Please do this instead of running behind certificates. Actually learn skills. Showing certificates is not so important as it is to, because when you talk to a person, you know how what the person is worth, and that should reflect in your talking, in your personality. And that will happen when you upskill, because then you're confident of everything. Okay, now building industry contacts. Trust me, LinkedIn is an amazing platform for this. Network aggressively on LinkedIn. Okay, and we have covered you on all fronts as far as this whole thing is concerned. So we are giving you resume and cover letter templates. We are giving you job and internship application templates. We'll be providing you temps for job applications in the sense of both specific and speculative. So when I say specific, you mean you're applying for a specific job, and when it's speculative, you're basically applying to an organization and asking them if they have something available that is suitable for your profile. You also, for those follow-up emails, oh, I interviewed with you and what do you think, haven't heard back from you, those emails can be really, really awkward. So we're giving you templates for that also. Also, when you're building the industry contacts, and like I said, LinkedIn would be a very, very good platform. So build your LinkedIn profile. And again, we will be giving you a basic profile template with some very, very basic guides. So hope that helps you. We'll give you some templates for blogs and newsletters to get you started, okay, on the journey of writing your own blog or creating your own newsletters. So yeah, we are trying to do all of that for you. But the only thing is, at the end of the day, you will have to put yourself out there. You will have to explore new options and keep an open mind. Do not discount any opportunity that comes by. Do not be intimidated. Be polite, add value to your audience, and you will be appropriately reciprocated. And yes, very, very important, please beware of the imposter syndrome. Now, for the benefit of those who are hearing this for the first time, what is imposter syndrome? It is basically a psychological state of self doubt wherein the individual starts doubting their skills and talents and accomplishments to an extent that there is an inner, a persistent inner fear that they will be exposed as a fraud. It gets that bad. So, if you follow this blueprint and you establish yourself as an expert in the field, and opportunities will definitely come to you. Okay, that I have no doubts about that. So now that I have laid down the endless possibilities, let me bring it all together. All these options that I spoke about come under this umbrella of science communication, like I have been mentioning. So what is science communication? Science communication is basically a channel for dialogue between the scientific community and the public. It presents evidence based knowledge and important scientific findings to all levels of the society. And that is very important. From individuals to policymakers, everybody is affected by science communication. It conveys news about research discoveries, their possible effects, and processes of the science to the society. Requirements of bodies involved in research, such as universities and research institutes. Okay, many of these research institutes in the UK, etc., have now come up with the research excellence framework. Many journals are mandated to follow it, and that basically entails that science communication be an essential part of it. So, many a times you come across journals which ask for graphical abstracts or a video abstract. So that is basically in keeping with the research excellence framework. Okay. So we know what is science communication. We know what can we do in science communication, but why should science be communicated? I mean, why invest so much into this? See, to begin with, it is very, very simple. It creates a sense of wonder about the natural world and about the place that you have in it. It helps you understand what is going on around you. And after the pandemic, we have all realized that, nobody in today's world can actually stay away from science, we all are being affected by it. So it's very, very important. Also, researchers definitely owe an explanation to taxpayers, because it is their money which goes into research funding. No research, no science can exist without funding. And where does that money come from? It is the taxpayers' money. And who is the taxpayer? It's the citizens of every country, of every nation, so every individual. So you definitely would like to know what is happening with your money, right? So yeah, science communication is very, very important there. You address the crucial issues that require sound scientific judgment, because there are certain issues which are not to be dealt with by people other than scientists, because they understand the nuances of it. So therefore what they understand has to be communicated to those that do not understand, to steer the policies in favor of science and society, to communicate research to a larger audience, to create an impact beyond publication, to disseminate the research results for joy and for funding. Like I said earlier, I was doing my work, but I was not happy because I couldn't disseminate, I couldn't talk about my work to anyone. Nobody would understand. So it is very important, that joy, that satisfaction is very important. The improved networking opportunities that it provides. It inspires research in young minds. It enhances the recruitment of researchers, because employers are now more aware of what a researcher or a scientist is capable of. To prevent unwanted consequences or even public mistrust, which is often caused by inappropriate transmission of scientific information. We all know about WhatsApp University and all the forwards that go on it, right? So that only leads to a lot of mistrust, and that has to be clarified somewhere. And science communication plays a very, very important role there. It reduces the gap between science and society. Okay, so having said this, and we all know the answer for the next question by now, I'm sure. Who is a science communicator? So, a science communicator is essentially somebody who translates the scientific and technical language into prose and images that form, inspire, and illuminate. Okay, so they are basically helping you understand what is going on in the scientific world. So, that is a science communicator. And a good science communicator would be the one who would draw on the audience's desire, this inherent desire that we all have to tell stories, and they will portray the entire information in a storyteller form to us. So for example, when you're reading certain blogs, certain articles, online videos, you get engrossed in it and you get lost in the depths of it, and that is because the creator or the writer has taken that time to research and formulate a story that you can relate to, one that speaks of the human side of things along with addressing the science. So, about the scientists, about their passions, details that appeal to the children in us that want to hear stories. In addition, when the stories describe a specific set of results, when it is technical, the best of the science reporters or communicators will take the time to get the information right. And they will also reflect on the views of those that do not concur with this. So now I did mention that science is not a mandate to be a science communicator, and it isn't. But let's face it, all those years of incomparable hard work that goes into becoming a scientist or a researcher shines through nonetheless. So, science communication is definitely a place for scientists to sparkle. Okay, and why? Because they know the challenges of lab work. They know that research is not just about a series of eureka moments. It is not, about only wins all the time. In fact, most of them are failures. They know the timeline and the practicalities of research results affecting the society through the policy changes. How long it's going to actually take for something to start affecting lives for years, the years that will go into a drug trial, a new tool that might improve lives. They know the practicalities of it. So they are in a very, very strong position to serve as an effective translator for the society. Okay, and the common point that I would like to highlight here between all career changing scientists, so all the scientists, former scientists who want to change their career paths, are that prospect of communicating science feels thrilling to them. Okay, so that thrill is what drives them to change, right? Okay, and attaching another very very important point over here, let's not forget the doctorates here. So there are advantages of a doctoral training. Now, doctorates, let me tell you, are some of the strongest individuals, and I'll tell you why. Those years of grueling lab work, university meetings, guide reviews, ethic boards, publishing pressures make them super tough and very, very difficult to take on. They learn the art of tackling things head on and how. So, doctoral training definitely has its advantages. There is no doubt about that. So, let's see what are the advantages. Of course, richer, true to life writing about science. They understand, the science life. They understand the lab life. They understand lab politics. They understand the cycles of science. They understand other details of the research world, the extra years that they have put in, spent thinking and practice thinking like the researcher. It equips them to help and understand the logic of a study, the flow of a study, point out alternative explanations, understand how messy science can be. Okay, science is not a series of eureka moments, like I said earlier. So it also helps them do a closer scrutiny of the literature. They know what to look for. They understand the scientific studies. They know how to evaluate them critically. And they have useful skills when they are trying to figure out which studies they can trust. This is very, very important in a world where, there is so much of information that the first challenge is always to filter the information out. How to read a scientific paper. Now, trust me, it requires a lot of skills to do that. And they have these skills. They have credibility with academics. Now, this I am on the edge about because, they know the right questions to ask. But now there is a problem here. What happens is academics and researchers tend to get a little more comfortable when they know that the person talking to them understands their jargon, understands their language, and this can compromise the conversational tone that a story can take. Okay, so that could be a little bit of a bummer there, but then of course the comfort level that researchers get is definitely a plus. So, access to jobs starting at higher salaries. Yes, I'm not going to deny this. The degree does place PhDs and doctorates as experts in their particular niches. Therefore, opportunities seek them out easier. Yes. But that is not to say that the job market is not competitive for them. It definitely is. Just because you have a PhD, it doesn't matter. The degree will open doors, but you still have to prove your own mettle over there. Right? So it's not really going to be, oh, I have a PhD, walk in. It doesn't happen like that. So the confidence to tackle anything that is thrown at them. And now this is something that I really, really relate to. And I love this point. So all those years of negotiating with PhD supervisors about just about everything under the sun makes them tougher than an old shoe. Trust me. If they are ever stuck, they just have to remind myself, well, I managed all those grueling years at the lab and then working for that damn thesis or dissertation. I'm sure I'm going to get to the end of this. So, what I'm trying to say is, once you've done that, nothing is more difficult. So, any of the scientists, researchers, doctorates in the audience, please, you are the best, candidates for pursuing anything that you want because you have that metal in you already. Okay. But having said all of this, I'm going to circle back and say this. A PhD isn't required to become a science communicator, neither is a degree in science. What is required is the blueprint that we spoke about. Okay. So, here is the list of resources that we will be sending across to you by email. You can expect this email within about 3 business days. Okay, and I would also like to tell you something. Those who are interested in exploring your writing skills, we spoke about practicing and all of that. So those who are interested in exploring your writing skills, you can definitely send us original articles that are written by you. Make sure the articles are within 500 words, not more than that. And send them to us within a week of this webinar. Okay, and only one article per person, of course, and we will revert back to you with expert editor comments on them, and a few selected ones will also get an opportunity to feature on the Sell Savvy blog post and the newsletter. So yeah, okay, with that, I think that's almost the wrap. Yes, I would definitely like to let you know about our upcoming webinar, which is Grammar and Scientific Writing. It is something very, very important, very, very basic. And please read the tagline of the course. It is skills beyond the scores, beyond the scope of Grammarly. Okay, so Grammarly does not resolve it all. So yeah, so this will definitely be a paid webinar. It's going to be more like a course or masterclass, and the course fee will be very, very nominal, of course. But as a token of appreciation towards all of you who have made time for today's webinar, we have a special discount. So how you will get the discount code is we're going to be sending the link for the feedback form in that box right now. Okay, so it's there in the chat box. So please copy the link, fill up the feedback form, and yeah, Akshay, just give me a minute. I'm just coming to it. So fill up the feedback form, send it to us, okay, after the webinar's over. And on successful submission of the feedback form, you will get that discount code. Okay, so you can use that discount code if you are, coming for the webinar the next time. Okay, so now these are our yeah, so you can send in your submissions. Of course, for your submissions we will be giving you the instructions on email also, so you will have our email ID also where you can send it across. Okay, I would just like to thank these people who made this possible today. Special thanks to Mr. Cleon D'Souza. He's the content admin who's been putting up all the posts and everything, and has been the driving force behind today's PPT that we had. Okay, yeah. So now I'm going to take up the questions. Yes, Akshay, let me just start with your question. Yes, so you were asking whether an MBA is required for recruitment. No, an MBA is not a requirement for recruitment. But like I mentioned, any of the graduate, postgraduate degrees that you have will help you in it. And an MBA is not a requirement. I have mentioned that a business management, this thing would be a requirement for certain other professions. Okay, so Akshay, I hope that resolves your question. Yes, I will be mailing the list for the internships as well. Yes, I'll be doing that. Okay, I'm just changing to the Q&A tab, and yeah. Okay, so okay, Chinmay, what about startup that offer? Is there any scope? Okay, Chinmay, I am not so sure I got your question. Are you trying to ask about a startup in publishing? Is that what you're trying to ask? Chinmay, are you still there? Okay. Okay, yeah, Akshay, MBA, better. Okay, so are you, Akshay, are you trying to ask that an MBA would be effective in which field? Is that your question? Akshay, could you please clarify your question? Okay, Akshay, if you're talking, I'm just going to, go with what I have understood. So if you're trying to ask that an MBA would be useful in which field, so, any of the business management fields, business related fields that I spoke about earlier, which is, for example, your technical sales, you have manufacturing and production, all of these, an MBA would definitely be useful. Okay. So if it's something else, Akshay, please let me know. Okay, now coming to the next question. Okay, yeah, Chintamani. So, can you please tell some more opportunities on increasing communication skills? Yes, okay. So, you're talking about resources for increasing communication skills. Now, when you say communication skills, are you talking about, communication skills, as in how you talk, how you write, that way? Or are you talking about science communication skills? Because resources for science communication, we will be sending across to you. Okay, we'll be sending you links for resources. There's also a post on the LinkedIn page, Sell Savvy page, which gives you a list of resources. So we'll be sending that across. Let me know if you're talking about communication in general, which is, personality development and self grooming and all of that. So that is a different thing. Okay, well, Arsh, what kind of courses can recent graduates take to show business and management acumen? Okay, that's a very good question. So, yes, so basically, like for example, if you're going for business and management acumen, there are so a course will not really show that. You will have to do a course and then gain some work experience to demonstrate it. But definitely the kind of courses you're looking at are management courses. Okay, so management courses, communication courses, so those are the kind of courses you can be looking at. Okay, Gurjot, you're doing BSMS. Okay, I wanted to know about internships in more detail. Okay, internships in which field? In medicine, are you thinking about? Okay, just 1 second. Internships in biological sciences, yeah. Okay, so could you just check on your newsletter, on your email? We have compiled this entire list, so we will send across some options to you. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, let me just come to, yes, Kaushik's question. Will you be providing a roadmap for PhD researchers who would like to get into popular science communication? Okay, so the roadmap is what I spoke about, right? It's the blueprint that I spoke about. So, if you're trying to get into science communication, that is essentially what you will try to need to, do essentially. When you say popular science, it essentially is about all your science reporting and all of that. So it is in the communication and outreach wala category that we spoke about. So it is definitely the same blueprint. If you want to pursue that, you'll have to start reading, listening to reporters who report about science, reading their writings, etc., and do some practice yourself, of course. So that's how you'll have to go about it. Okay, that's Kaushik. Okay, Vihang. Is the hype about data science justified? Can someone with no coding background study data science, and will it be useful getting a job? Yes, of course. So the hype about data science being justified or not is a very subjective question. Um, I wouldn't say that the hype is justified. Okay, what I would rather say is that data science is definitely, undeniably a very, very important component of any organization. Because like I said earlier, data is everywhere. So it is definitely important. The hype part of it is very, very subjective. But can someone with no coding background? Yes, of course. That's what I told you earlier. You learn on the job. That's what you do. So, you do not have a coding background. That's okay. You understand how, if you're good with numbers and you understand how to manage data, because that's not everybody's cup of tea, then you can definitely look at a job in data science and analysis even without a coding background, because like I said, it's just a matter of doing a small course, upskilling yourself, and you can do it very easily. It's not a big deal. Okay. Okay, yeah, Kaushik, science communication, like writing for international science blogs. Yes, that's what I was talking about, like all the writing for open platforms and places which allow you to write on their platforms and get featured, etc. So I'll be sending a list to you. Okay, yes. Very useful if you could make a group on any platform consisting of the attending and discussing. Yes, that's a very good idea, Chintamani. In fact, we are going to be doing that after this webinar. Actually, we surprisingly had a very, very large number who had registered, almost 400, and only about 30 attended. So let's see, we will put together a group, and then we can have discussions. For now, what you can do is, we have the event page on LinkedIn. So on the Cell Savvy page, we have the events page, and there a discussion can be done. The comments and everything is activated over there. So you do that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let me just check if I have answered everything. Yes, it will be on LinkedIn. Okay, and also, any of these, any kind of roadmaps, guidance, etc., that you require, you can definitely contact me on any of the options that I have, shown. So any of these options, you can contact me, and you can send me a direct message on LinkedIn also. And we can also think of a one-on-one consultation, and that could probably resolve your queries, etc., anything that is not being covered in this. Okay, now let me just check if there's anything more. Yes, Nidhi, you can register. You can register for the next webinar through, the announcement will come on the LinkedIn page, and I will be sending invites to all those who attended today's webinars. So you can definitely register through the link that will be given in that. Okay. Yes. So Prashantha. Yeah, Prashantha, my email ID you're looking for, so that I've already given it over here, info@cellsavvygroup.com. That's where you can reach me. Okay. Okay. Any more questions? I'm just trying to ensure that I've covered it all. Yeah, Prashantha, that sounds great. I mean, are you teaching somewhere? Okay. Great. So thank you for being here today. And, because the audience was so large, I had kept almost half an hour for interaction. But okay, we wrapped up quite early in that way. So great. If there are no more questions, shall we wrap up then? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.